Welcome to the podcast, Chelsea. Thank you. I'm so honored to have you on the podcast today.
Oh, hello. I'm so excited to be here. I love your heart to just serve mamas and entrepreneurs. And I think we need more of the message that you carry. So I'm truly honored. Thank you for having me on the show. And thank you for putting so much and creating so much impact in the world already with your podcast. I love it.
Oh, I thank you, Chelsea. That means so much because listening to the Rainmaker Family podcast, you and Steven, your husband, you co-founded the Rainmaker Family together, which we'll talk about. You serve so much on your podcast and just give
Thank you.
so much value. I can't wait to share that with our listeners today. Before we get started with all the juicy questions, why don't you give listeners a little intro on like how you became an entrepreneur and a little bit about the Rainmaker family and how you're serving families in such an exciting way.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Yeah. So my husband, Steven, and we met in high school. We were high school sweethearts and we jumped right into business together. We were in a service-based industry where we were trading time for money. I don't know if your listeners are in that position where it's just you feel like you have a ceiling, like you want to make more money, but in order to do that, you have to invest more of your time. And so for Steven and I, it really started in our first little tiny one bedroom, one bath apartment. There's this black spiral staircase. And it wasn't like a cute spiral staircase. It was janky, not up to code. And up top, you would walk up this creaky black spiral staircase. And upstairs was our office that we worked side by side. And we were in the wedding industry, trading time for money. And I felt like we called it our winter season where things would slow down. I feel like I would feel this scarcity. And it wasn't just about money and our finances and the actual number that I would see appear in our bank account, but there's actually a state of being. I don't know if anybody can relate where you just feel it. You feel it. And I felt like we were just never figuring out what the next thing was. And it was really about looking towards the future and saying, hey, someday we want to be parents. We want to start a family, but the lifestyle and really the career that we're in, it felt almost impossible. And we would spend like our Saturdays shooting these weddings that were really life-giving. But honestly, we were like longing for more leverage really in our life. And we lovingly call that season the spaghetti years, where we would take spaghetti and throw it up against the wall and see what would stick. And we tried everything. We tried so many, like renting a room out in our house. We tried investing and just all these different things, and they all didn't really work until we decided that we were going to launch an e-commerce business. And it's like a fluke on how Steve and my husband did all this research and found out about this program through selling on Amazon. And at first I was really skeptical because I was like, I don't want just another stuff like sitting in my garage. I want to be hands off. And Amazon was amazing because they would handle all the packing and shipping. It created that leverage that we had been looking for. And Angela, I'll never forget like the aha moment, the moment where I knew this could change everything for us. And then again, for everything that it could change for now, the students and the mamas and the families that we work with today, is we were at a wedding. It was probably 100 degrees out, and it was time for us as wedding vendors to eat our dinner. And wedding professionals, if you have any listeners who are, you get your plate and you run to the corner and you start stuffing your face as quickly as you can because you don't want anyone to see how hungry you are. And at that moment, I turned to Steve and I said, hey, let's check our Amazon business today. Let's check in. So we pulled up the app. And to my surprise, we had made more money on our Amazon business that day than we did photographing that wedding. And I talked earlier about that scarcity moment. Every single winter, I would feel it. And for the first time since being an entrepreneur, I felt that scarcity, that weightiness lift off of my shoulder. And it was like this light bulb moment of this is the leverage that we've been looking for. And we went on to talk about this to everyone, become an Amazon evangelist, which is where the Rainmaker family started. And we've now coached over 30,000 families through what we call the Rainmaker method. But beyond that, I think one of my favorite part is that our Saturdays now we get to spend with our two little boys that we have, enjoying farmers markets and helping other families create whatever their Saturday day needs to be like as well. So that's really like the start of our entrepreneurship journey and where we are today.
It's so inspiring. It's just, but there's so much in that you learned in the process. And what I really want to emphasize is that you don't have to go through that process alone and
Mhm.
take all of those years to learn all and go through all the challenges that you did. And one of the things that I know that you really talk about in trying to get into that entrepreneurial mindset that so many people find intimidating is, one, being good enough, right? And like thinking, okay, am I really worthy of this? But two, thinking about their time. So, how can we as entrepreneurs start to really think about our time differently so we can scale our businesses?
Mm. Yeah, I love that question. And I first want to address, like you said earlier, about the good enough feeling and feeling ready to start a business. And I just want to debunk this that you will never feel ready. There will never be like the perfect stars aligning to
Right.
start something. You just have to decide. And even before I became an entrepreneur, I actually worked in a fast food restaurant. If you're from California, you probably, I hope that you would love this fast food place, but it's called In-N-Out Burger. And I worked there. And I'll never forget, there was a line, a rush at lunchtime, and I was the only person taking orders. And there was nothing really I could do. The next batch of crew that was going to come clock in was 30 minutes out. And so I had to try my best to take all of these orders. And I'm taking orders as fast as I can as a 17-year-old girl. And this very disgruntled man, I can hear him start grumbling in the background. And he starts to step up and I begin to say, "Hey, how can I help you today? How can I serve you?" And he just says, "If you don't do anything about this line," because he was upset about how like long he felt like it was taking him, like you're never gonna amount to anything. You're never gonna get anywhere in life. And you can imagine as a 16-year-old like girl, I'm like holding back tears, trying to like not burst out in tears in front of everybody, but also there's nothing I can do but smile, take his order, and be polite.
Mhm.
And I think so many times in our life, we let those voices, those negative voices like that man tell us, like, you're never going to be anything. You're never qualified. You're never equipped. And it might not be that full extent. It might be something that you believe. So I think just recognizing that and saying, you are equipped, you are called, and you really can do this. So I just wanted to like say that
Yeah.
first because you're never going to fully feel ready, but you just have to step out there and that consistency in your life will totally compound. It will have this ripple over effect. But in regards to your time, as an entrepreneur and especially as a mom, I think that you need to, in advance, create systems that will create structure and then give you freedom in your life. And you do have to think about time differently. That's why we love what we teach is all about like leverage, meaning if you put in 1 hour of work, you're going to get 100 hours. It's going to be like this multiplication of things. And so when looking at different business opportunities, I think that's what's important is to look at your time. Is this going to give me the most leverage? Is this hire, this very first hire that I'm afraid to make, is this going to give me more leverage in my life to do the things that only I can do? So you do have to think differently. You have to not see it as I'm losing money by hiring this person. You have to look at what am I gaining by hiring them, whether it's more time with my family, more time to do the only things that I can do in my business, more time to invest in these relationships. So we have to rethink our mindset around that time and how can that give us more time in our life, more leverage.
Hmm. Yeah, and I love how you even talk about sometimes it's great to even pay somebody so you can rest and do nothing,
Mhm.
right? As moms,
Absolutely. Yeah.
we don't give ourselves permission to even do that. And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I think it's such a huge deal to, as a mom, your time, your relationship with time changes. You feel like you
Hmm.
have less. And then, so as an entrepreneur, you're trying to accomplish all of these things. And so I love talking about time because it seems to be something that consistently comes up as one of the top of excuses why somebody can't do something. But
Mhm.
there's so many ways that we can think creatively about how we use our time and the value of it.
Mhm.
But it seems like you also talk about lots of other things that entrepreneurs need to adopt in their mindset and in their life in the Rainmaker Family program. So, what are some of the other skills that the program teaches that's going to help somebody be successful?
Yeah, I really love referring to these. What you learn creates what we call like this bubble over effect in other areas of your life. And I think one of the best examples that I can give is at Rainmakers, we're all about, yes, we want you to have that an increase in the number in your bank account. Absolutely. We want that. But more than that, we want transformation in the process because and you see this all the time. You see even high level entrepreneurs or baby entrepreneurs, they start a business that they then grow to resent, or their family grows to resent because they're putting all their effort and their time into that and they become a different person in the process. So you can have transformation towards the negative, or you can have the transformation towards the positive. And we're all about that in Rainmakers. But I think the best example I can give is one of our students. Her name's Jasmine, and Jasmine was already a very successful real estate investor. She had multiple investment properties. Like she knew what she was doing, but she wanted to diversify. She wanted to do something different. And so she joined our program, launched several products. And one of the things that might seem silly to some listeners or to maybe somebody who's never heard of this before, but in our program, we encourage people to go live, to show their face on camera, to be very active and to get to know each other. And you'll see when people come through our group, they're like, I don't know about this. This is the first time I've ever gone live. I'm super nervous. I don't know about this. And we do that for a reason. And so Jasmine had been showing up, had been doing the work. She had received the financial benefit. But what I love about the bubble over benefit that we talk about is that her teenage daughters, I think she was like 6 months into our program, her teenage daughters turned and looked at her and said, Mom, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of who you are becoming. Like, Angela, they saw a transformation in their mom from like the program. I think that's what entrepreneurship, that's the power of it. It's not just about the number in your bank account. Yes, of course, that matters, but it's about like the transformation, that bubble over benefit that sprinkles into your relationships, into your family, into the way that you show up powerfully, into the way that you negotiate something, into like the confidence that you have again. I think that's a big thing that I'm very proud of as like the founder with Steven in Rainmakers is I care so much about the financial aspect, but I've seen entrepreneurs who don't cultivate a healthy mindset around things and then the business just crushes them, or one wall comes up, one adversity, one hard time, and it crushes them. And I can tell you as a business owner, as you advance, as you create more impact in the world, there will be like different challenges. And it's all about that bubble or benefit, that mindset that you have to cultivate in the beginning that will have you go the distance. Returning to that, why are you doing this in the first place? Why do you want to start a business? Why do you want that leverage and that freedom? It has to be so strongly rooted to go the distance.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think that just really differentiates what you and Steven are doing compared to maybe somebody who's just like could sell a course that tells you how to sell a product on Amazon. And it just seems like such a special difference having gone through building a business. And your point about the impact that you're having on your children is so right on too, because I had a guest who couldn't believe that her teenage son wrote his college essay about having a mom as an entrepreneur. So
Love
we
that.
are definitely displaying what's possible in
Mhm.
developing ourselves. And so many times moms think I can't start a business because I am a mom, but
Mm.
in many ways, that's all the more reason to start a
Mhm.
business. I don't know
Absolutely.
about you, but I think entrepreneurship is the biggest invitation to the best personal development
Hmm.
you could ever
Absolutely.
ask for. It's like
Yes.
all of your issues you didn't even know you had
Uh-huh.
will come to the surface if you want
Uh-huh.
to grow your business.
Yes, absolutely. It's a
So,
refining thing. It's
yeah.
Stephen and I always say entrepreneurship is the best marriage counseling if you're doing it with a partner. But even if you're doing it without your partner, like it's still,
Yeah.
it will reveal things about you, but it'll make you stronger. And there shouldn't be this resistance about the transformation in the hard and in the change. I've learned to run towards those because I'm like, look who I'm becoming. Let's celebrate that. Let's
Right.
celebrate the skills and the accomplishments like that I didn't think I could do in the beginning.
Yeah, it is. That's when somebody is really seasoned, is when they're like, nope, I'm resisting it, so I'm gonna run towards it.
Uh,
That somebody really has been around the block or two in entrepreneurship. But one of the things that we haven't talked about mindset that is also such a huge issue is how we think about money. And I know we
Mm.
could talk episodes about this, honestly, but what are some of the common resistance when it comes around money and building your business that you see with the entrepreneurs?
I think the number one thing that pops up into my head is something that I struggled with a long time for a long time. So I can only share like parts of my story and then of course what I've observed. And I think the biggest thing for me in that resistance towards money or making money is that I grew up with an unhealthy mindset that money was evil and that money in any hands wasn't good. Oh, you should have to suffer. And I think it started with my family didn't have a lot of money. And so I think I would watch other families. I went to a small, like, private school when I was younger that my grandparents helped pay for. That was the only way that I could go there. And I'm very thankful for that education. But there were other kids in my class who were much more affluent than my family. And so I remember conversations that were had about those other families or even mindsets that I had about money and all of that. So I think from my own experiences, I had to get rid of this idea that money was evil, that I didn't deserve it,
Mhm.
that I was going to have to work really hard to get it. And those are like my top three. And so I think pay attention if you're having some money wall that's holding you back from creating money or even like buying something nice for yourself. How many moms, it's so hard sometimes to spend money on ourselves, whether we need it or we don't, or we want it. Like I remember like just full transparency. Like I remember one time I wanted a Louis Vuitton purse and it was when we were in the wedding industry and I think it was our anniversary. And I had asked for a Louis Vuitton purse from Steven and he got me it and it was a used Louis Vuitton purse. So it wasn't even like a brand new one, but I was so excited to have this bag. But then all of a sudden, as soon as I got it, and we had worked really hard, like we had done extra weddings, like we worked hard for this. And I just remember like having this purse and being ashamed to wear it out, to wear it certain places because what are people going to think about me? Because I had negative thoughts about people that would carry a type of purse like that around. And I just think it was just this moment of, I'm okay. I'm still a good person, even though I've built wealth, even though I have this nice purse. Is that weird how just like certain items we immediately judge someone by that or because of money? And now I'm like, I do think that some of the people with the most money are the most like generous. And so you have to let go of those negative belief systems around money because money it will just be amplified the more money that you have. So again, it's like the small mindset stuff that you have to work on in the beginning that feels very insignificant. That will be amplified when you're given a lot of money, when you have worked really hard to get there. And that all the time, like people having unhealthy mindsets, even when they've worked hard for things. And so just re-centering that. So I know that's like my own like journey with that. And I think like money is just a tool. It's a tool that can be used for good. It can be used for evil, and there are evil people with money. But I think there's so many incredible entrepreneurs doing amazing things with money and using that as a tool.
Yeah. And actually, I've heard a Louis Vuitton story so many times. So I
Oh,
think
really?
it's this pivotal thing that really strikes a chord with people, either in a positive or a negative way. So that's really
Yeah.
interesting. But yeah, money is just an amplifier no matter where you are in your life.
Yeah.
So I just think we can't talk enough about money because that's what you're going in business to earn, and it can really hold you back if you don't start to think about how it is that you perceive money and how all your thoughts around it. So thank you for sharing that and reminding us that we just need to make sure that we have the right perspective and to be really curious when we have certain reactions to things like that.
Mhm.
But I love to think about going back to time management. I would love to hear your thoughts about when we finally feel good enough to start a business and we're able to have our time freedom and we're having a bit of a financial freedom in our life. And so, how do we begin to curate that new life and our schedule? Because I know that this can be such a trap for new entrepreneurs or growing entrepreneurs. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have three things that on scheduling and calendar that Stephen and I have developed over time. And so I'm gonna tell you what those are, like rapid fire as best as I can. And this really came from a place of, so we have two little boys, and all of our second, I was coming out of maternity leave. And our business was at a new level. We're scaling and growing. And now I'm a mom of two, not one, and we've moved. And my plate is full, like many of your listeners, whether you are a seasoned entrepreneur or not, like you as a mom, your plate can be full. There's a lot of things happening. And I just remember really wanting, I had this moment, like these gut reactions, these mom moments, I call them, where I just knew I didn't want to just rush into work with saying yes to everything. I knew that I needed to have this calendar like epiphany of how I was going to structure my week. And so the first thing that Steven and I have really implemented is this thing that we call your dream week, planning your dream week. And when I say a dream week, as much as we would all love to be on the beach in Hawaii sipping margaritas, that is not a realistic dream week for me. I have two little boys. I live in Northern California. The beach is not close. So for me, I really looked at for you, and you can do this too, looking at a dream week for you means looking at the last couple of months or the last year and really recognizing patterns and seeing what made this week really awesome versus the week that wasn't awesome. And what are the things that are life-giving and really planning those life-giving family, personal things first. Because if you don't plan the personal things first, your calendar will get smashed with a million other things that you end up saying yes to. So you plan out your personal life first. So for me, practically, I like to go to a Pilates studio in town. I like to go 2 days a week. That's when I feel like really good, energized, and recharged. So I'm scheduling that in first before any business meetings. Another thing on my dream week is that I love it at least 2 mornings a week, I love having extra intentional time with the boys where I go do a mommy and son date night or date morning. So on Thursdays, I don't start work until later in the day. It's more of a personal day of catching up on things. And Stephen knows like no business meetings are scheduled with Chelsea on Thursday mornings because I am having my dream week of spending intentional time with them in the morning. So those are just a few of their criterias. But I would really challenge your listeners to think about their week and to plan out their dream week, their personal things first, and then add in the business. So that's number one, your dream week. Number two, I would really challenge you to think about stacking your days and batching things together. I don't know if you've ever felt this way, Angela, where at the end of your day, you're like, I just feel so frazzled. What did I even do today? I know I accomplished much, but what
Never.
did I do today?
No,
Yeah,
never.
never. I'm the only one. Oftentimes that frazzledness doesn't have to do with the amount of things you did. It has to do with the switching. And there's actually science behind this that there is a switching cost. We call it a switching cost that happens when you are, say, on a meeting bright and early with your team doing stuff, and then you're podcasting, and then you're creating TikTok content, and then you're picking up your 2-year-old from preschool, and then you're a soccer mom, and then you're back to work, and then you're on social media. Do you see all that switching? It's
Mhm.
exhausting hearing me talk about it. And that is called switching costs. And so oftentimes I feel like specifically women, we have that frazzledness added to us because our calendars aren't prioritized and we don't have batch days where we're getting certain things done. So today, when we're recording this podcast, it happens to be a Tuesday. I'm on camera all day on Tuesday. I'm recording podcasts, I'm recording content our team needs. That happens on Tuesdays. I don't record podcasts on a different day. And I'm very strict and upfront with Steven and with our team. So they all know that is happening on certain days. And that eliminates that frazzledness, that switching cost that oftentimes happens. And of course, there are exceptions like podcasting all day back to back. That can be an emotional drain. I love doing this, but at the end of the day, like I usually don't want to go out to dinner with friends. I usually want to curl up with my boys. So just like knowing that about yourself, that dream week. And then I would say like the third one that I could give you, especially for moms and entrepreneurs, is having an end of the day ritual. And what I mean by that is at the end of the day to eliminate that feeling of wanting to be in two places. I really believe you can have impact inside and outside the home, but when I'm in mom mode, I want to be fully present with my boys. I think like many of your listeners that care about that ebb and flow of business and motherhood, like I want to be fully present, not distracted. And when I'm in our business, I want to be like crushing my goals and like creating the most impact. And I don't want to be in one role thinking about the other. And honestly, Angela, I again came back to that time where I was going back into work and I would find myself at the end of the day just closing my laptop, heading inside, and on my phone again while I'm trying to say hi to my 3-year-old Kaizen. And it was like this disconnect of I'm saying I want to be present, but my actions aren't showing it. And so an end of the day ritual can be so many things. And you can even do this if you're not an entrepreneur. It for me, this is what it simply looks like. I have like a studio space that we built in our backyard, and it's like my office, my studio. And so at the end of my workday, all I do is I have a pen and paper and I just go through my calendar for the next day. I write down anything that didn't get done. It's like a brain dump. Just let it all out, get all the agenda out of your head. And then I say 3 to 5 things that I'm grateful for out loud because that's powerful. I just say, thank you so much that I got to have an awesome interview with Angela. I'm so grateful for her. Thank you that I had that opportunity. And I'd list out a couple more. And then I would take a couple deep breaths. And I literally in my head, I'm just like, okay, you're good, Chelsea. You're closing out the day. You don't need to do anything else. And I close my laptop and it's like a little rat and basket thing that I carry my laptop and my pens and paper, all my work stuff. And I put everything into that and I carry it inside. And as I'm walking inside again, taking deep breaths, knowing I am transitioning from work to mom life. And I will usually go upstairs and change my clothes because I don't want to be wearing this shirt while I'm with my like 2 toddlers. I want to be in workout clothes or going to the park. And so I usually will change my clothes. That's another thing that symbolizes to me like you are closing down work. And then I'll usually make a protein smoothie while I'm in the kitchen with the boys, catching up with them. That's my end of the day ritual. And that has just really helped me create this seamless routine between work and family because as entrepreneurs, oftentimes we're working from the little crevices of our home, in our bedroom office, in the closet, in the car, like wherever you can. And it's really, yeah, it can be messy when you have work and life all right in front of you. So I would just say, really dictate like what is happening in your dream week. Be strict about it. If you have a team, let them know. If you have family, a nanny, a babysitter, let them know what those expectations are so everyone's on the same page. So your dream week. Number 2, just knowing about those switching costs and just really batching things together as best you can. And then number 3, having that end of the day ritual where you can just take a deep breath and you're not trying to be on your phone scrolling right in front of your kids. And Of course, there's going to be exceptions. There's going to be moments where things are up in the air and you have to be flexible. But that has really helped me eliminate this all over the place. I'm frazzled. What am I even doing today? So I hope that helps your listeners.
Yeah, I think it's so helpful. And I think too, what I'm hearing is no matter what you're doing, just create a situation where you can be present and give your best self instead of giving everything a fraction of what you can in
Hmm.
the moment.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. And
Yeah.
I love to, I know we're running up against time a little bit, but I love to, honestly, your approach to planning your year. I heard it at a great time when I was planning my year. And
Mm.
so you use the same approach to planning your
Uh-huh.
year too. You schedule all the important things first
Hmm.
and make sure that's in there and protect that time too. So I thought that was so useful, not only in planning your week, but thinking about the bigger picture too. So before we wrap up, I definitely want to make sure that we spend some time talking about how you take care of yourself in all of this and managing
Mm.
the success and being a mom. How do you take care of yourself and your mental health
Mm.
in the midst of all of this?
Yeah, it's so important. I'd say a couple of things that I do. Again, if you really want to zoom out, Stephen and I, like Angela, you touched upon, we have this big yearly calendar. We plan out our year. And again, we're really strict and have just certain things that we've talked about, like how much we travel a lot, but how much do we want to be away? How much makes sense for our family? And we really map it out. And then we've set up like quarterly check-ins to make sure that's actually happening. So that's like big picture. And then you zoom in a little bit more. And then I'm going back to my dream week and making sure that there are like life-giving things in there for me that I'm being really strict about. And I don't like using the word strict. I should have said this earlier because I know some people are listening and I'm very much a creative at heart, coming from a photography background and not knowing my KPIs or numbers or anything like that, flying by the seat of my pants to run this business. But I have learned that in the I will. I feel like there should be a better word than strictness, but in the structure, that has allowed me freedom. And so I don't want your listeners to hear this and be like, she's talking about structure and strictness and KPIs, and I don't like that. I don't want to be boxed in.
Yeah.
And I was the same way. It's not about being boxed in. It's about creating things, systems that work for you and your family so that you can have the most freedom. And of course, you can be spontaneous, and of course, you can do things differently, mix it up. And I would say if you're really creative, have team around you that are really type A that can get all of your ideas like into action,
Mhm.
especially if you're like a quick start or you're not as good at follow through. So having other people around you. So that's zooming in a little bit more. And then I would say mentorship is huge. I think, Angela, you can speak to that as well. I have, number one, I have friends that are in similar industries or different industries, whether I've paid to be in a mastermind or they're just like friends that I met in my small town. I think that there's this idea that entrepreneurship is lonely. And I would say that it can be lonely, but it doesn't have to be.
Mhm.
And I think that mentorship and coaching and community, whether you're creating it or it's provided for you in a mastermind type of setting, that's been huge for me because there have been so many moments where I need to phone a friend. Like the only people who will understand me fully are these entrepreneur friends who don't live in my city, but I've chosen to stay connected to them. So I think that's really huge for women, for entrepreneurs. As moms, we carry a different load, especially if you are the business owner and the mom. Like there's a different pressure that it can oftentimes creep up if you don't have people who can relate. So that's huge, is always investing in that. And I think mindset work, I know that's talked about a lot and we talked so much about that, but I'm such a big believer in that. We have a Monday mindset call every single week in our Rainmaker community for a reason. Like I am investing in mindset coaching right now and in spiritual coaching and in marriage counseling and all of that because it's so important and everyone has blind spots.
Mhm.
Everyone has blind spots and There are people in my life that are further ahead of me, whether it's in business or marriage or family. There are always things that I want to grow in. And
Mhm.
it's not because I'm striving to this next thing, but it's really about I want to experience transformation. I want to be the best version of me. And so I need to always, if I'm asking our students to invest in a mentorship program, then I need to be willing to do that for myself. And so I think zooming out, planning your calendar, planning your week, being really strict about the things that are life-giving, planning those in first, being in community, that's so important, whether it's with people in your area or they are all over the world. How cool is technology? We can Zoom and connect with one
Right?
another. And then beyond that, always knowing that, man, everybody has blind spots. There's always a place of growth. It's not because of your weakness, it's because of a strength that you want to continue to evolve and go to the next level.
Yeah, like I always say, working on you is working on your business. And so often we kind of
Absolutely.
separate those two
Yeah.
things, especially as parents. And I'm so glad you brought up it's why I started this podcast. I'm happy to support any entrepreneur and female entrepreneurs, but as moms, we have that extra weight that you talked about, those that extra
Yeah.
level of societal or expectations, or there's so many things that kind of can give us more guilt than maybe somebody else might. I thank you so much for being on the podcast and just being such a great example of how you can be a mom and an entrepreneur and thrive. You don't have to make that trade-off, and you also don't have to show up like maybe a male sense of leadership or entrepreneurship that's been modeled so often. You just show up and authentically and share so much from your heart. So I appreciate that. And I definitely think we need more people in the business space doing that. But as we wrap up, what takeaways would you like for listeners to get from our conversation?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is if you're listening to this, if it's resonating with you, I want to encourage you to take action on at least one of the points we talked about, whether it's planning your calendar, if you're feeling lonely or isolated, can you reach out to a friend? And I think that goes for any episode that you listen of Angela's because she's amazing and providing so much value. But I think it's easy to just consume things. It's easy to consume and say, one day I'll do this, or oh, this is just not, I'm so thankful for this knowledge, but then you don't take any action. And you can't expect results if you're not willing to take effective action and go and do the work. So I just really want to encourage you, don't just listen to this show, go and actually apply it and see the transformation. And go tell Angela about the
Yes.
transformation that you're
Yes,
experiencing
definitely.
because of her podcast. Yeah.
Aw, thank you, Chelsea. And I love that you brought that out. And actually, if you take action within 24 hours of hearing something that inspires you like that, you are more likely to keep that new habit or that new thing in your life permanently. So definitely
Awesome.
take that advice. I love that you
Yes.
brought that up. I don't think I've had almost 100 interviews, a guest mention that. So I think that's so brilliant you brought that up. So I definitely want to encourage listeners to also listen to the Rainmaker Family podcast. I love it. So much value. But where else
Oh,
can
thank
they
you.
connect with you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, chelseadiaz.com. My name is spelled Chelseey. I know a little different, but chelseadiaz.com. It has everything to get connected from our podcast to my Instagram. I love connecting over there. I have a blog with tons of resources, and on the homepage, I have three like mom entrepreneur, like free downloads. So lots of information to get connected, also find out more about the Rainmaker family too. But I'd say that's the best all in one place that has everything that you could probably need to come find me.
Awesome. I love it. And I love that you're leaning into developing your own brand and just putting yourself out there. I love it so much. Chelsea, thank you so much for your time and being on the podcast.
My honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime.